Okay, friends. Now coming to the project finance. So let us first understand what is project finance. So project finance is nothing but securing large amount of money for any of the infrastructure project, especially in the context of solar we are discussing. Now when you raise this money, there are a process and the project developer has to pass through different processes to raise the debt and equity. And arranging this debt and equity for the project is known as project finance. We need to understand that the debt and equity, when the debt is arranged, it is two types. One is non-recourse finance. This is known as, if anything goes to the project, then not only the project developer or the equity investors lose their money, it is the debtor or the bank who is financing this as part of debt also faces the loss of money. So the risk is shared not only by the project developer but by the debtors as well, and that is what known as project finance. The second aspect of the project finance is the balance sheet finance. So suppose we have a company which is ABC Infrastructure, and if I am taking finance on my balance sheet, if something goes wrong with my 50 megawatt solar project and I am not able to repay the debt, then they have the ability to take that on my other assets which are part of my balance sheet. And that is the reason every time when you want to have money, the debtor will ask for a recourse based finance, and the project developer wants that it should be a non-recourse finance. So there is a difference. So the project sponsor wants that there should be minimum risk for the project, and the debtors want that there should be stable cash flow, there should be minimum risk, and it should be non-recourse finance. Non-recourse finance. That means if anything goes wrong with the project, the project developer is not facing the consequences by relinquishing his other assets. It is the project, if it wins, both the equity as well as debtors will get the benefit. If it goes wrong, then both will suffer. So that is the meaning of arranging project finance. Now, what makes project financing feasible? So the first requirement to raise the project finance, especially in the context of renewable or a solar power project, is the PPA. That is known as Power Purchase Agreement. PPA is the first contract which is signed by the developer with the off-taker. Typically, the off-taker in Indian context is SECI, Solar Energy Corporation of India. They buy power from the project developers, and then they sell this power to the DISCOMs. So, in fact, SECI is the intermediary. So, option 1, with whom you are signing the power purchase agreement. If it is a central government agency like SECI or NTPC, then your PPA are more secure because their balance sheets are healthy balance sheets. If you sign a PPA with the state DISCOM, whose balance sheet is in red, they already have debt, and the project financing becomes a challenge. Why? Because the project debtors or the banks or investment institutions, they will assess the off-taker risk very high, and either they will increase the interest rate or they will say that no, this off-taker credibility risk is high and we are not willing to finance this. So PPA becomes very, very important. PPA can be also from a third party, like through open access you can sell power to any of the private company also. In that case, the buyer, the end consumer, should have a healthy balance sheet, so that the banks will evaluate this document, which is known as power purchase agreement. Then when you are a project sponsor, that means you are a project developer. So what are their consideration is, they would want that their debt interest rate is minimum and equity returns are maximum. So typically in solar project you have some 12 to 14% return on equity. If they execute project at a lesser cost, their returns will become higher, and that will fetch them a higher returns on their investment. At the same time, you would also want that your liability to the project are minimum. That means you would like to keep your project off the balance sheet. That means you want to have the project based on your project financing, not the balance sheet financing. So these are the consideration of the project sponsors. And then the last consideration is the lender's consideration. So what is the requirement of lender? Lender will want that there should be a stable cash flow. You should have a foreseeable future. Generally, these power purchase agreements are long-term contracts, typically 25 years. So for a long period, you have a stable cash flow and visible cash flow. So you have to create a project report, submit it to the lender, and then lender will see that whether the project has a stable cash flow or not. The risk in terms of implementation, in terms of